Hello folks, this is Ibis, and in this video I'm going to be giving out a quick demonstration of my plugin Toon Titan for Flash. And Toon Titan is a cell shading, color management, and ink and paint application, or it's actually a plugin for Flash, but it's a full-blown software in and of itself. It's not just a one-trick pony. Now, I am proud to say that Toon Titan, ever since I released it, has become a bit of a industry standard for anybody creating artwork and animation using Flash. It is used by companies like Disney and Cartoon Network, and practically every independent filmmaker out there that uses Flash has bought Toon Titan at some point in their lives. So it's actually kind of cool. It's a very warm feeling to know that it's out there and people are actually using it. Anyways, I haven't done a demo in quite a long time, and I've thought, okay, well, it's time to, put together a new demo, show people what the plugin is for and what it does, and just kind of introduce it to a whole new generation of animators. So let's get started. First of all, we have a little import fill button here. And basically what this button does is it allows me to mix any color outside of Toon Titan and just bring it into the cell shader. Once it's inside, Toon Titan will automatically generate a suggested highlight, shadow, and outline color based on that color. So if I have this color here, click that button, I'll brought it into the cell shader, and now I also have the highlight, shadow, and outline based on that base color. Alright, so let's say I'm coloring something like I'm just going to keep it simple. I'll draw a heart, and let's just kind of push that a little bit more there. And basically, now that I have my drawing, just tweak it a little bit. I can fill it in using my base color. And I'll come back here and I'll draw outline around the area that's going to depict my highlight. I'm also going to draw something there that'll kind of outline where my shadow is going to be. So I'll click on the shadow, fill it in there, click on the highlight, fill it in there, and that's it. I am done. Let's delete those outlines, which I no longer need, and I have a beautiful piece of cell shaded artwork. Now let's suppose I actually like that varied line weight style that a lot of cartoonists use. I can click that outline and use any of the render outline buttons here. Now the normal renderer will use whatever your color is selected as the stroke. The black renderer will paint it black, and the monochrome renderer will use whatever outline color you have selected within your cell shaded style. So let's go ahead and render it to black just to see kind of what it looks, and you can see that the quality of that line that was rendered basically looks as if I had spent a pretty good deal amount of time with a graphics tablet drawing one of those varied line weights strokes. And now the difference is that it takes a great deal of skill to actually draw with these variety of line weights. This was an automatic process. It was quick and simple, and even if you do use a graphics tablet, I highly recommend that you render your outlines this way because it gives you a little bit more of a margin for error. Now, another feature that Toon Titan has, aside from the basic cell shades and stuff, is that you can in fact adjust the intensity of the outline. Okay, so you can make your outline a little darker, or you can make it extremely light, even to the negative values. So if you're creating a character, it's like a Batman type of character, or a character that is being placed in a scene where everything's dark and you want the outline to be contrasting, okay, you can keep that same harmony in your tone, but you go into the negative value so you can still see that outline. So you can adjust that independently. You got your highlight, you can make it really bright, or you can make it practically the same color as your base. but you can adjust the intensity of that outline, that highlight. The same thing with the shade. You know, you can make it dark, you can make it extremely light. So you can adjust the levels of intensity for your highlight and shadows very easily. Another thing that I like about Toon Titan is that you have this RAM color palette here, and this is something I came up with that allows you to work with colors in a way that, okay, I'm working with this color, but now I need to change my color to something else so I can paint another item. Okay, I'm just going to draw a quick leaf. Alright, so let's see now. So now I'm coloring something completely different. I don't like that color. Let's try that one, much better. Alright, let's change that outline. And maybe add some cell shades real quick. I'm going to choose something completely different for my draft outline. Okay, so click my shadow, fill it in, fill it in, fill it in, just fill in all those little gaps. Just to make sure he's in there, Control Z. Fill that in, fill that in. And we'll put a little highlight there, there. Now we'll get rid of these red outlines. And again, now we have a nice, beautifully rendered piece of cell shaded artwork. But let's say now I want to go back to using this color. Alright, so I can click on my color palette there to save this color because I may want to come back to it. So now I can click on this one, I load this color, and I have, you know, this particular set of shades ready for me. I'm using the paint behind. So there you go. So now I have that to work with. Want to go back to the previous one? Okay, I can do that too. Alright, so it's a very handy little palette system to have. You have up to 10 available, you know, temporary color slots that you can use to store different colors. And if you do happen to use them all, you can always get rid of them simply by clicking and dragging them out of the slot, and that empties them out. If you just click it, it switches to that color. But if you click and drag, it empties it out. And if you click on an empty slot, then it saves it to, it saves whatever color you have selected to that empty slot. It's a very intuitive way of working with color inside of Flash. So another thing that we have, aside from your standard cell shaded styles, is that you can make use of gradient highlights, gradient shadows, and highlight to shadow blends. So one way that you would use this is, for example, I want to create a blend between, well, you know, I want to create a blended highlight instead of a flat one. I'm going to load that color up real quick. I think that's the one I'm using. Yeah. So I'm going to load that color up real quick, and instead of using this one for my highlight right there, I'm going to basically use a gradient highlight. So I click on the gradient highlight button, and that's it. I'll go in here with my fill bucket, and I adjust it, and I painted it. Notice how the highlight is still there, but now it gradually blends itself into the base. I can do the same thing with that shadow. Oh, I gotta make sure I select it first. So I can do the same thing with the shadow. So the shadow is still there, but it gradually blends itself into the base color. And I can do that with any base color. So let me load up this green color into the cell shader. And I'm going to use the highlight to shadow blend, so I'm going to paint that right there. It's very subtle. I'm going to use this gradient transform feature. Let's see, zoom out a bit, because actually, let me see here. I'm going to remove that lock. That way I can paint with it and kind of resets it. So there we go. So now you have a gradient. This is the highlight gradient over here. I mean the highlight color over there, and the darkest color down there for the shade. And I can just kind of adjust the way it blends within my shape. Alright. So now you have all sorts of possibilities for color blending in there. Now if you're still not satisfied with those color blends, I also have, let's see here, okay, something that will allow you to create multiple blends. So here we have this purplish color. I'm gonna fill that in. Okay, so that's a base color, and here I have this yellowish color. Alright, so let's create a blend between this purple and this yellow. So all I have to do is load up the color that I want, my base color, click one of these circles, one of those rings, select my second color, click the second ring, and the third ring creates a blend between those two colors. So now I can select that gradient and basically go in here and just kind of fill it in. And I can just, you know, adjust how it blends. So I've effectively created a region where these two colors actually blend with each other. Very useful. And I have up to 3 different color blends that I can create at any given time. Let's see here. Let's get green-ish. Let's get a blue-ish. There you go. So we have something like that. Okay, so that's how that works. And let's see, the outline rendering mode also have different degrees of thickness. So I can go in here and let's say I want to render this one thin. Okay, then we have medium. I think this is the medium. Yep. Alright, and so on. Let me go back here. The biggest one, of course, is the really big Jumbotron. That's kind of as thick as it's going to get. But you can always leave it here. What I would recommend is leave it on medium. And any item that you have selected, you can just click it multiple times. The more you click it, the thicker it gets. Alright? So you don't have to worry too much about that. I would just leave it, you know, as the default. But you know, some people like extra choices, so I left it like that. What else do we have inside of Toon Titan? Okay, well, we have the ability to create color harmonies as well. Let's see if I can go back here. So this is the complementary color swatches mode, and basically any color that you create as your base color is automatically assigned certain complementary colors. So and the way that you would use this is, for example, to create clothing, props, or maybe background or environment elements that actually match the character's colors, whatever colors you're using on their clothes, and create some kind of color harmony between them. So that's how you would use this. So let's select this one. I can bring it into the cell shader and just switch back there, or I could just, you know, leave it there, and as I paint with it, I can, you know, I can use those colors to paint. Any color that I created that I like, I can always, you know, switch back to the cell shader, bring it in, import it, and just, you know, continue to use it and have multiple shades of that color if I wanted to. All right. Okay, so that's how that works. And next we also have the TV safe colors, and this is good for colors if you're working on for a standard NTSC or PAL color spectrum. It'll prevent you from creating colors that are not safe for television. This is not something that's completely relevant in the US and Europe these days because almost everybody has switched to HD digital televisions, but for a lot of people who are still using the old contemporary television sets, they are still subject to a lot of the you know, color issues. Therefore, if you just want to avoid that from the start, any color that you mix, you know, you can rest assured that as long as that's activated, you will not be allowed to mix colors that are deemed unsafe for television. And now that I mentioned that, also that I, you know, move around these levers, you can actually manipulate further because this is an HSV color picker. Okay, this is something that's not available inside of Flash, so you can mix your colors using hue, saturation, and lightness. Or value. Hue, saturation, and value. And it's not available in Flash, but also any color that you create using HSV, you can further manipulate using RGB, which is, you know, just increase the amount of red or decrease it that you want to add to it. You know, green, blue. So it's kind of like a hybrid HSV / RGB color picker, which is not very common, but you know, it's there, and it's very useful because it's there, you know, and it gives you all those options in a very simple, you know, format. Any color that you have, you can actually store it in memory on a more permanent basis. So I have this nice little purplish color that I used for this heart. Now this color palette is great for working on a temporary basis, but the moment I turn it off, it goes away. Alright, so it's temporary. Now, the way that you would store a color on a more permanent basis is that once it's inside of Toon Titan, you can actually click this save icon and you can give it a name. So if this character is the t-shirt for a character named Bob, I give the character's name right there. It says t-shirt, and I just save it, and that's it. So now when I close Toon Titan, later on I reopen it. Alright, all that color is gone, but if I open it here, I would have my list of colors. So I have t-shirt Bob number 1 and Bob t-shirt number 2 right there. So as I click it, I can load it into the cell shader and come back and paint with it. So here's another one I had created earlier. This is Bob shirt number 2. So I have the ability to store colors, manage them. If I don't like a color, I'm done with it, you know, I want to remove it permanently, and just delete it. No big deal, it's gone forever. If I want to create some manually, somebody gave me a list of colors that I should use for my characters, I can just input them manually. So here's Jim with pants. And the color, you know, can't think of any color at the top of my head real quick. Let's say something like, let's just mix something at random. And let's see, outline intensity, we'll call it a 1. Highlight intensity, how about a 2? And saturation or shadow, we'll call that a 2. Save it. Boom, so I have that right there, and that's what that looks like. I can bring it in and work with it. That obviously doesn't look very appealing to me, so I can go back in there, edit it, highlight maybe 4. See how it basically made it a little bit brighter? Or I can just come in here and manually adjust it. Alright, so basically I'm looking at outline 192110. I can just save it as a new one, or I can just use those values that I had. Go to edit mode and just I think it was 182110, did I say? And just enter them manually. Okay, so now I have that style in there. I can sort stuff from A to Z or Z through A. I can delete stuff, which I've already demonstrated, and I can duplicate things to make things easier. So if things only change by a little bit, so let's say here is Jim's pants. Now I want to create Jim's pants when they're wet. Okay, so it would have a completely different nature to it. I clicked the wrong button, didn't I? So this is Jim's pants. Let me edit that again. Save it. So I'll make sure I select it. Then I click duplicate. So now I copied it. So that one I can edit it. I can go wet, save, and I can edit that and maybe just increase the color a little bit. Let's see, A5. Well, that's a big color change there. But anyways, if you know what colors you're working with, you can just kind of adjust them a little bit. So let's see here. Go back. Let's see here. Okay, so let's adjust this. So it's just slightly different. And I can save that, so I can save a different version of that pant color, so I can have two variations of the same color basically. Anyways, that's it for Toon Titan. If you have any questions about the software, you know, just feel free to send me an email. That's ibis@toontitan.com. You can get a copy of Toon Titan at sinistarinteractive.com/toontitan, or just toontitan.com.